All right, so today we're diving deep into a pretty unique slice of history.
Definitely,
Christian samurai and daimyo in Japan.
you got it.
So we're talking about like 1500s, 1600s.
Yeah, that period.
And, these are the legendary warriors, right? Bushido, the code of honor, loyalty.
Right, right.
But they ended up converting to Christianity, which seems kind of a clash, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating clash of cultures. You've got Japan steeped in Buddhism and Shintoism, and then you get this new faith coming in from Europe.
Right, and it's not just a few people here and there. I mean, some pretty powerful figures.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was looking at our sources for this, and we've got some Wikipedia articles in Spanish on some of these key players.
Okay.
Like Huro Sumitada, Tsutomu Surinen.
Those are big names.
These guys were daimyo, right?
Yeah.
Basically regional lords, tons of power.
Mm-hmm.
And they converted to Christianity, and even more, like they started destroying Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines.
Yeah, you see, that's where it gets really interesting because converting to Christianity, it wasn't just like a personal decision.
Right.
It had massive political implications. Huge.
Oh, I bet.
Like, take Murasimitada. He saw this as a chance to make an alliance with the Portuguese,
Oh, interesting.
who were really, hot to set up trade in Japan.
I was reading about that. He gave them access to Nagasaki, right?
That's right, the port of Nagasaki.
Which, that gave him access to their trade network, but even more importantly, their weapons.
Exactly.
So was it a true conversion, or was it just a power move?
That is the question that has puzzled historians forever.
Right.
It's probably a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah.
We have to remember, this was a period of constant warfare in Japan. Alliances shifted all the time.
Right.
And your survival often depended on making the right moves.
Yeah.
Christianity, because of its ties to Europe,
Right.
to the trade and the military tech,
Right.
that offered Sumitada a way to boost his position, to protect his domain.
Makes sense. But what about the samurai who served these daimyo, right? They were bound by Bushido, the warrior code, loyalty, martial skill.
Right.
How do you square that with a religion that says, turn the other cheek?
Right, that's a key tension that we really need to unpack here.
Yeah.
And it's important for our listener to know that Bushido wasn't just about fighting, it was this whole code of ethics.
Oh, okay.
And they valued things like benevolence and justice.
I see.
So some samurai might have seen Christianity as actually aligning with those parts of Bushido.
So it wasn't so black and white, right?
Not at all. And we also have to remember that Christianity coming to Japan, it wasn't just about religion.
Right.
It brought new ideas, new tech, new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
It was a cultural exchange that had an impact on every level of Japanese society.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And speaking of cultural exchange,
Yeah.
I found this amazing story about Francisco Javier, the Jesuit missionary, who gets to Japan in 1549.
Okay.
And he basically gets the whole Christian movement going there. And in his letters, he talks about just being blown away by how many people wanted to be baptized.
Yeah, Javier was a remarkable figure.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't just preaching from some far-off place. He really immersed himself in Japanese culture, learning the language, the customs.
Wow.
And he wasn't afraid to use those local beliefs and practices to make Christianity, more relatable.
Yeah, like that story about him losing his crucifix at sea and having it miraculously returned by a crab.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
It sounds a little, out there.
Yeah.
But those kinds of stories, they really helped to build up his image.
Yeah, they
Spread the message of Christianity.
Those stories were powerful tools. They resonated with people, on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And tapped into their existing beliefs about divine intervention, the power of nature.
So you've got the daimyo, like Sumitada, making these strategic moves.
Right.
And then you've got Javier winning people over on the ground. But even with all that success, it wasn't all smooth sailing for Christianity in Japan, was it?
Unfortunately not, no. As Christianity gained a foothold, it started attracting opposition.
Oh, I bet.
Some Buddhist and Shinto priests saw it as a threat to their own influence and teachings.
Yeah.
And as we'll see, this eventually led to persecution and a really dramatic shift in the fate of Christians in Japan.
So we've got powerful daimyo convert for strategic reasons. We've got samurai trying to figure out how to balance their warrior code with this new faith.
Yeah.
And then we've got this charismatic missionary spreading the word.
Right.
This is already shaping up to be quite a story.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wild one.
Definitely. Welcome back. It's easy to think about history in terms of these huge events.
Yeah.
But it's the individual stories that make it real.
Oh, for sure.
And when it comes to Christian samurai, there are some amazing figures that show us just how complicated this period was.
Okay, let's hear about some of these samurai. I mean, it must have been so hard to balance those two things.
Right.
Warrior code versus Christian teaching.
Yeah, like take Kanishi Yukinaga. He was a brilliant military strategist,
Wow.
known for his skill on the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
but he was also a devout Christian.
So how did that work? I mean,
Right.
he fought in the Imjin War.
Right.
That was a brutal conflict.
He did, yeah, between Japan and Korea.
So how can a Christian samurai justify going to war? I mean, did his faith affect how he acted during the fighting?
That's a great question, and some historians believe that Yukinaga actually tried to use diplomacy
Okay.
to reduce the bloodshed.
Oh, wow.
There are stories about him treating prisoners with compassion, even negotiating for peace.
Okay.
But you also have to remember that warfare was just the reality back then.
Right.
Even if he struggled with the morality of it personally,
Yeah.
he was still bound by duty, to serve his lord, to protect his domain.
Right. So it's like he had to make these tough choices,
Yeah.
trying to balance his faith with what he had to do.
Exactly. And his story, it doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
After the Imjin War, he fought in the Battle of Sekigahara, which was a major turning point in Japanese history.
I see.
Unfortunately for Yukinaga, he was on the losing side,
Oh,
and he was executed by the victor, Tokugawa Ieyasu.
wow. That's a rough ending. Did his faith have anything to do with his downfall?
It's hard to know for sure, but some historians think that Ieyasu saw Yukinaga's Christianity as a threat.
Okay.
Remember, Christianity was linked to foreign powers, and Ieyasu, he wanted to unify Japan under his rule.
So Christianity was seen as a problem, even though it had spread so much.
Right, it was seen as a potential source of instability.
Right.
So it's not surprising that there was a backlash.
Mhm.
And we already talked about the temples and shrines being destroyed.
Right.
But there were also restrictions on missionary work.
Okay.
And eventually, a total ban on Christianity in 1614.
A total ban. Wow. So what happened to all the Christians?
That's where we get to the story of the Kakuryurishitan,
Okay.
the hidden Christians.
Wow. Imagine having to practice your faith in secret.
I know, it's incredible knowing that if you were found out, it could mean imprisonment, torture, even death.
That's terrifying. How did they manage to keep their faith alive under so much pressure?
They were incredibly resourceful. They came up with all these ways to disguise what they were doing.
Oh, wow.
They blended Christianity with Buddhism and Shintoism.
Oh, interesting.
They even made hidden shrines in their homes so they could pray in secret.
I was reading about that. Like they would disguise statues of the Virgin Mary to look like Buddhist figures.
Exactly.
It's amazing how they adapted to survive.
It really is. They were masters of blending in. And remember those fumi we talked about before?
Uh-huh.
Those images of Christ or Mary that the authorities would use
Yeah.
to see if people were really loyal?
Right.
Well, the Kakuryurishitan, they had to figure out how to step on those images
Oh, wow.
without betraying their faith.
How did they do that?
Well, some would secretly carry little crosses or other Christian symbols in their hands and transfer their devotion to those objects instead.
It's incredible to think about the things they had to do just to keep their beliefs.
It's a powerful story. It shows us how strong faith can be and how resilient people are.
Right.
It reminds us that even when things are really dark, people find ways to hold on to hope,
Yeah.
to find meaning in their lives.
Okay, so we've got brave samurai trying to figure out their warrior code and their Christian faith.
Right.
We've got this amazing missionary spreading Christianity.
Yeah.
And we've got the authorities trying to wipe it all out, forcing it underground.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next in this crazy story?
Well, the story of the Kakuryurishitan, it doesn't end there.
Oh,
They kept their faith alive for centuries.
centuries.
Yeah, passing it down for generations in secret.
Wow.
And their story is one of resilience, of adaptation, and an unbelievable dedication to what they believed in.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about these hidden Christians. What happened to them? How did they survive for so long without any kind of church?
That's where we'll pick up next time. The story of the Kakuryurishitan shows us how powerful faith and community can be. They endured the toughest challenges, and their story is this incredible look into a very unique chapter in Japanese history.
Okay, so last time we left off with these Kakuryurishitan, these hidden Christians,
Yeah.
having to practice their faith in secret for centuries. It's mind-blowing.
It is.
How did they do it? How do you keep a religion going for that long without any kind of formal structure?
Well, it really comes down to the power of community and oral tradition.
Okay.
Back then, literacy wasn't as widespread in Japan.
Right.
So people relied a lot on stories and songs, rituals passed down through generations.
Yeah.
The Kakure Kirishitan, they took that tradition and adapted it to preserve their faith.
So instead of reading the Bible or something, they learned about Christianity from their elders.
Exactly. They developed this unique blend of practices.
Interesting.
They took elements from Buddhism and Shintoism.
To blend in?
To avoid detection, they disguised Christian figures as Buddhist deities.
Wow.
Adapted prayers to sound like traditional chants.
Right.
They even used secret hand gestures to communicate their beliefs.
Like they created their own secret language of faith.
That's a great way to put it, a code only they could understand.
And it wasn't just about, keeping the rituals and beliefs alive.
Right.
It was about community, right?
Absolutely. They would have these secret gatherings
Oh, wow.
in hidden places, often at night,
Yeah.
to pray, to share stories, to support each other.
It's amazing that they were able to create that sense of belonging,
It is.
even though they were living in constant fear.
Yeah, those communities were essential.
Yeah.
They were the backbone of their faith. It's how they passed down their traditions, how they kept hope alive.
And that's how Christianity survived in Japan.
Exactly.
But this couldn't last forever, could it? What happened when the ban on Christianity was lifted in 1865?
It's a fascinating turning point.
Yeah.
After centuries of secrecy, these communities could finally come out in the open.
Wow.
Some of them embraced the official Catholic Church.
Makes sense. They wanted to reconnect with the global Christian community.
Right. But it wasn't that easy for everyone.
No, why not?
Well, remember, the Kakure Kirishitan, they had developed their own unique form of Christianity.
Right.
Shaped by centuries of blending and adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were hesitant to just abandon those traditions, to fully embrace the official doctrines of the Catholic Church.
So there was a split then.
Exactly. Those who held onto their syncretic practices.
The blend of religions.
Yeah, they became known as Hanare Kirishitan.
What does that mean?
It means separated Christians.
Separated from the main church.
Right. They continued to blend Christian beliefs with Buddhism and Shintoism,
Okay.
honoring their ancestors and the unique path their faith had taken.
It really shows how deeply Christianity had become part of Japanese culture.
Absolutely. It wasn't just something imposed from outside.
Right.
It had become something distinct, something uniquely Japanese.
It's a testament to human adaptability, to resilience.
For sure. The Kakure Kirishitan show us that even when faced with persecution, faith can find a way to not just survive, but to thrive.
Right.
To adapt, to evolve, to meet the needs of its community.
So what can we take away from all this? What can we learn from the story of Christian samurai, the daimyo, the Kakure Kirishitan?
It reminds us that history is complicated. It's not just black and white. It's about faith and politics, cultural exchange, resistance, adaptation, resilience. It challenges us to look beyond simple explanations.
You see the nuance.
And to really grapple with the complexity of the past.
It makes you think about the power of belief.
Yeah.
The human need for connection, for community.
Absolutely.
The Kakure Kirishitan, they went through so much, but they never gave up their faith. They supported each other through those dark times. It's a powerful message.
And it's one that still resonates today.
It does. And it leaves us with a really interesting question.
Yeah.
What happened to the descendants of these Christian samurai, the Kakure Kirishitan? Did their faith survive? How did their story shape Japan as we know it today?
Those are questions worth exploring.
They are. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Christian samurai
Of course.
and the hidden Christians of Japan. It's been a fascinating deep dive into this often forgotten part of history.
It has.
And remember, there's always more to learn. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep diving deep.
Yeah.